Hi guys, it's Valeria. I'll be picking up on The Solid Ground We Stand On Isn't from Chapter 1. This change was a complete reimagining of the world we thought we lived in, and it led to the proverbial rug being pulled out from under our feet. Feet we used to think were planted on solid ground. How so? Think back to those old toothpick and styrofoam ball models of the atom. Before quantum physics came along, people believed that an atom was made of a relatively solid nucleus with smaller, less substantial objects, either located in or around it. The very idea that with a powerful enough instrument we could measure, calculate the mass of, and count, number, the subatomic particles that made up an atom made them seem as inert as cows grazing on a pasture. Atoms seemed to be made of solid stuff, right? The classical atom. Figure 1a, the old school classical Newtonian version of an atom. The focus is primarily on the material. Nothing could be further from the truth as revealed by the quantum model. Atoms are mostly empty space. Atoms are energy. Think about this. Everything physical in your life is not solid matter. Rather, it's all fields of energy or frequency patterns of information. All matter is more nothing, no thing, energy than something, particles. The quantum atom. Figure 1b, the new school quantum version of an atom with an electron cloud. The atom is 99.999999% energy and 0.000001% matter. It's just about nothing materially. Here is an image of the real quantum atom. Figure 1c. This is the most realistic model of any atom. It is no thing materially, but all things potentially. Another puzzle. Subatomic particles and larger objects play by different rules. But this alone wasn't enough to explain the nature of reality. Einstein and others had another puzzle to solve. Matter didn't always seem to behave in the same ways. When physicists began observing and measuring the tiny world of the atom, they noticed that at the subatomic level of the fundamental elements of the atom didn't obey the laws of classical physics the way that larger objects did. Events involving objects in the large world were predictable, reproducible, and consistent. When that legendary apple fell from a tree and moved toward the center of the earth until it collided with Newton's head, its mass accelerated with a consistent force. But electrons as particles behaved in unpredictable, unusual ways. When they interacted with the nucleus of the atom and moved toward its center, they gained and lost energy, appeared and disappeared, and seemed to show up all over the place without regard to the boundaries of time and space. Did the world of the small and the world of the large operate under very different set of rules? Since subatomic particles, like electrons, were the building blocks of everything in nature, how could they be subject to one set of rules and the things they made up behave according to another set of rules? From matter to energy, particles pull off the ultimate vanishing act. At the level of electrons, scientists can measure energy-dependent characteristics such as wavelength, voltage potentials, and the like, but these particles have a mass that is so
infinitesimally
small and exists so temporarily as to be almost non-existent. This is what makes the subatomic world unique. It possesses not just physical qualities, but also energetic qualities. In truth, matter on a subatomic level exists as a momentary phenomenon. It's so elusive that it constantly appears and disappears, appearing into three dimensions, in time and space, and disappearing into nothing, into the quantum field in no space, no time, transforming from particle, matter, to wave, energy, and vice versa. But where do particles go when they vanish into thin air? Collapsing the wave function. The electron could be anywhere. The electron appears as a particle. The electron disappears into nothing. The electron reappears as a particle. In figure 1D, the electron exists as a wave of probability in one moment and then in the next moment appears as a solid particle, then disappears into nothing and then reappears at another location. The creation of reality. Energy responds to mindful attention. Consider again that old school toothpick and styrofoam ball model of how atoms were constructed. Back then, weren't we led to believe that electrons orbited about the nucleus like planets around the sun? If so, we could pinpoint their location, couldn't we? The answer is yes, in a matter of speaking, but the reason is not at all what we used to think. What quantum physicists discovered was that the person observing or measuring the tiny particles that make up atoms affects the behavior of energy and matter. Quantum experiments demonstrated that electrons exist simultaneously in an infinite array of possibilities or probabilities in an invisible field of energy. But only when an observer focuses attention on any location of any one electron does that electron appear. In other words, a particle cannot manifest in reality, that is, ordinary space-time as we know it, until we observe it. Quantum physics calls this phenomenon collapse of the wave function, or the observer effect. We now know that the moment the observer looks for an electron, there is a specific point in time and space when all probabilities of the electron collapse into a physical event. With this discovery, mind and matter can no longer be considered separate. They are intrinsically related because subjective mind produces measurable changes on the objective physical world. Are you beginning to see why this chapter is called the quantum you? At the subatomic level, energy responds to your mindful attention and becomes matter. How would your life change if you learned to direct the observer effect and to collapse infinite waves of probability into the reality that you choose? Could you get better at observing the life you want? An infinite number of possible realities await the observer. So ponder this. Everything in the physical universe is made up of subatomic particles such as electrons. By their very nature, these particles, when they exist as pure potential, are in their wave state while they are not being observed. They are potentially everything and nothing until they are observed. They exist everywhere and nowhere until they are observed. Thus, everything in our physical reality exists as pure potential. If subatomic particles can exist in an infinite number of possible places simultaneously, we are potentially capable of collapsing into existence an infinite number of possible realities. In other words, if you can imagine a future event in your life based on any one of your personal desires, that reality already exists as a possibility in the quantum field, waiting to be observed by you. If your mind can influence the appearance of an electron, then theoretically, it can influence the appearance of any possibility. This means that the quantum field contains a reality in which you are healthy, wealthy, and happy, and possess all of the qualities and capabilities of the idealized self that you hold in your thoughts. Stay with me and you will see that with willful attention, sincere application of new knowledge, and repeated daily efforts, you can use your mind as the observer to collapse quantum particles and organize a vast number of subatomic waves of probability into a desired physical event called an experience in your life. Like clay, the energy of infinite possibilities is shaped by consciousness, your mind. And if all matter is made of energy, it makes sense that consciousness, mind, in this case, as Newton and Descartes called it, and energy, matter, according to the quantum model, are so intimately related that they are one. Mind and matter are completely entangled. Your consciousness, mind, has effects on energy, matter, because your consciousness is energy and energy has consciousness. You are powerful enough to influence matter because at the most elementary level, you are energy with a consciousness. You are a mindful matter. In the quantum model, the physical universe is an immaterial, interconnected, unified field of information, potentially everything but physically nothing. The quantum universe is just waiting for a conscious observer, you or me, to come along and influence energy in the form of potential matter by using the mind and consciousness, which are themselves energy, to make waves of energetic probabilities
Coalesce.
into physical matter. Just as the wave of possibility of the electron manifests as a particle within a specific momentary event, we as observers cause a particle or groups of particles to manifest physical experiences in the form of events in our lives. This is crucial to understanding how you can cause an effect or make a change in your life. When you learn how to sharpen your skills of observation to intentionally affect your destiny, you are well on your way toward living the ideal version of your life by becoming the idealized version of your true self. We are connected to everything in the quantum field. Like everything else in the universe, we are, in a sense, connected to a sea of information in a dimension beyond physical space and time. We don't need to be touching or even in close proximity to any physical elements in the quantum field to affect or be affected by them. The physical body is organized patterns of energy and information, which is unified with everything in the quantum field. You, like all of us, broadcast a distinct energy pattern or signature. In fact, everything material is always emitting specific patterns of energy, and this energy carries information. Your fluctuating states of mind, consciously or unconsciously, change that signature on a moment to moment basis because you are more than a physical body. You are a consciousness using a body and a brain to express different levels of mind. Another way to look at how we humans in the quantum field are interconnected is through the concept of quantum entanglement or quantum non-local connection. Essentially, once two particles can be initially linked in some way, they will always be bonded together beyond space and time. As a result, anything that is done to one will be done to the other, even though they are spatially separated from one another. This means that since we too are made up of particles, we are all implicitly connected beyond space and time. We do unto others, we do unto ourselves. Think about the implications of this. If you can wrap your mind around this concept, then you'd have to agree that the you that exists in a probable future is already connected to the you in this now, in a dimension beyond this time and space. Stay tuned. By the end of this book, that idea just might seem normal to you. Weird science. Can we affect the past? Since we're all interconnected across distance and time, does this suggest that our thoughts and feelings can influence events in our past as well as those we desire in our future? In July 2000, Israeli doctor Leonard Leobovici conducted a double-blind, randomized, controlled trial involving 3,393 hospital patients, divided into a control group and an intercession group. He set out to see whether prayer could have an effect on their condition. Prayer experiments are great examples of mind affecting matter at a distance. But stay with me here, because everything is not always what it seems. Lubovici selected patients who had suffered sepsis, an infection while hospitalized. He randomly designated half of the patients to have prayers said for them, while the other half were not prayed for. He compared the results in three categories: how long fever lasted, length of hospital stay, and how many died as a result of the infection. The prayed for benefited from an earlier decrease in fever and a shorter hospitalization time. The difference in the number of deaths among the prayed for and not prayed for groups was not statistically significant, although better in the prayed for group. That's a powerful demonstration of the benefits of prayer and how we can send an intention out into the quantum field through our thoughts and feelings. However, there's one additional element to the story that you should know about. Did it strike you as slightly odd that in July 2000, a hospital would have more than 3,000 cases of infection at once? Was it a very poorly sterilized place, or was some kind of contagion running rampant? Actually, those who were praying weren't praying for patients who were infected in 2000. Instead, unbeknownst to them, they were praying for lists of people who had been in the hospital from 1990 to 1996, 4 to 10 years prior to the experiment. The prayed for patients actually got better during the 1990s from the experiment conducted years later. Let me say this another way. The patients who were prayed for in 2000 all showed measurable changes in health, but those changes took effect years before. A statistical analysis of this experiment proved that these effects were far beyond coincidence. This demonstrates that our intentions, our thoughts and feelings, and our prayers not only affect our present or future, but they can actually affect our past as well. Now, this leads to the question, if you were to pray or focus on an intention for a better life for yourself, could it affect your past, present, and future? The quantum law says that all potentials exist simultaneously. Our thinking and our feelings affect all aspects of life beyond both space and time. That's where I will finish for today. Make sure you do something that makes you feel like yourself. Whether it's picking up a hobby that you've been making excuses for, the fear of not being good enough, do it. Practice. Do a thing that you know you're not good at and accept it, because we're not supposed to be born perfectionists, because perfectionism is not real. I encourage you guys to do something out of your comfort zone. Share that with me, and I'll share my journey of being more social, putting myself out there, and I want to share that with you guys, and I want there to be a community in motivation, inspiration, creativity. So yeah, I'm rambling on. Have a great day. You're awesome. Bye.